Looking okay here in this video. Yeah, see the name of the video? It's urgent. It's a must. You must stop complaining about the Patdowns and the body scanners, okay? You have no reason to complain about it. After all, you are trading it for your freedoms, remember? Gotta trade security for freedom, okay? So as long as you're gonna trade your rights and your freedom away for security, for the right to be safe, don't worry, you'll be safe when they got you in a concentration camp and they kill you, okay? Because you will be safe, okay? But just the same, I just wanted to say this. You people have no right to complain or bitch your belly about any of this. It's what you wanted. You choose to stay divided and continue to fight each other. You choose to call this all a conspiracy theory. Okay, none of it's really happening because it's a conspiracy theory because you turn your backs to the truth and look the other way. So it's obvious this is what you want. So quit complaining about what you want and accept it. Think about it. Leave your comments and opinions. Next video, you'll have a good one.
Kathy Bossy lives in South Charlotte. A flight attendant for 32 years. She had to walk through security 3 months ago, which began innocently.
I was selected by the TSA to go through the new body scanners that they had.
She reluctantly agreed. As a 3-year breast cancer survivor, this is on her last day of chemo with superstar Toby Keith. She says she didn't want the added radiation through her body, but she said fine.
When I got out of there, she said that because my ID was on my back, I had to go to a personal screening area.
2 female Charlotte TSA agents took her to a private room and began what she calls an aggressive pat-down. They then got to feeling around her right breast, the one where she'd had surgery.
She put her full hand on my breast and said, "What is this?" And I said, "It's a prosthesis because I've had breast cancer." And she goes, "Well, you'll need to show me that."
Kathy was asked to remove her prosthetic breast as a flight attendant on her way to work.
I did not take the name of the person at the time because it was just so horrific of an experience that it just blew my mind. I couldn't understand. I couldn't believe that somebody had done that to me.
Since then, Kathy has contacted the Legislative Affairs team, a group through the Flight Attendant Union. She sent us the email she sent them. She wants to see something change when it comes to these personal pat-downs.
There's blowers and there's dogs that can sniff out bombs, and there's no reason to have somebody's hands touching your body part.
Well, she likes Barbies and jumping on her bed, but this 6-year-old is under the watchful eye of Homeland Security. It turns out the Ohio girl is on the no-fly list. The parents of Alyssa Thomas found out their daughter was on the list when they took a trip from Cleveland to Minneapolis on Continental Airlines.
We were like puzzled. I'm like, well, you know, she's kind of 6 years old. This is not something that should be typical. She may have threatened her sister, but I don't think that constitute Homeland Security triggers.
Alyssa Thomas doesn't sound like a suspicious name. The family says they contacted Homeland Security and received a letter stating that they won't change the list, nor confirm or deny her even being on the list. Oh. Okay.
Harassing a kid?
Yep.
Nice.
A 39-second clip shot on a cell phone camera at Salt Lake's International Airport last Friday. It shows a young boy, shirt off, and the TSA with gloves on, patting him down. The video was posted on YouTube by a University of Utah student and now may add to travel delays across the country on Wednesday, the busiest travel day of the year. There are protest threats on websites like this one encouraging passengers to refuse TSA's new controversial body scans and pat-downs. The pat-downs take about 4 minutes. It involves a security worker running a hand up the inside of a passenger's leg, even on the bottom of the buttocks. Some passengers don't like body scanners either, which looks through clothes like an X-ray machine to search for weapons. At Tampa International Airport, the TSA has a press conference scheduled for Tuesday concerning security for holiday travel. Right now, the airport isn't saying if the press conference has anything to do with possible protests or travel delays.
A terrible story about a man who was brought to tears during one of those so-called enhanced security pat-downs at Detroit's Metro Airport. The screener didn't really care that he was wearing a medical device that might come loose with the new, more aggressive pat-down. And since he appeared with us yesterday, Thomas Sawyer got an apology from none other than the head of the TSA, John Pistol. And he's here with us this morning from Holt, Michigan. to talk about it. Thomas, great to talk to you. Just for the folks at home who might have missed it yesterday, a quick recap of what happened to you there as you went through that enhanced security screening. What's the medical condition you have and what happened?
I'm pretty sure the world by now knows what happened, but I went through the Detroit Metro Airport, went through X-ray, and X-ray picked up on my urostomy bag. I'm a bladder cancer survivor. I now have an appliance on my side, and I had to go through a pat down, and when they were patting me down, I tried to tell them my medical condition, and they weren't really interested in letting me tell them my medical condition, and when they did the pat down of my chest, they caught the palm of their hand on my urostomy bag and opened it, and I had urine going down me. That's the short version.
Wow. So after your appearance here yesterday, and I watched it yesterday, and I couldn't believe what happened to you. We got a call from the TSA because John Pistol, the administrator of the TSA, was also on with us. And they said that he wanted to talk to you. He telephoned you yesterday. What was that conversation like?
Yes, he did call me yesterday. He was very gracious. He started by apologizing. We shared a little humor with each other. I said, I don't imagine you've been too busy today. And he said, oh, no, just a couple meetings here and there. And I said, yeah, I had a couple phone calls, too. And we laughed. And he went on to apologize to me on behalf of the TSA. And then he had some things to say. I had to do a little correcting. He had a part of the story mixed up, which a lot of people do right now. And we did that, and then he asked me what I thought, because I kept talking about training, what I thought. And so I talked to him that I really don't believe that they've been trained as well to handle medical condition as what various medical conditions is what many of the TSA postings have been saying. And he said he was going to be talking at 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon to his supervisors, and the whole thing was going to be discussed, and there was going to be a larger meeting, and I offered to actually attend that meeting, and I would demonstrate and talk with them about the world of urostomies, colostomies, insulin pumps, etc., and would help educate the agents if he was so moved. And he said, I might take you
information tonight, and if you're already unhappy about the enhanced pat-downs at the airport or those fancy new x-ray machines, you're not going to like this one bit. There's some new research due out this week suggesting many of these gadgets, now at about 70 airports around the country, cost about $170,000 a pop. They're put there to stop the next underwear bomber. Well, they simply won't do what they promise. They won't detect the kind of bomb that terrorists are using these days. What's more, there's a Government Accountability Office report from back in March raising doubts about the scanners back in March. And on top of all that, we've also learned of another GAO report on real-life testing of how well or how poorly the bomb detectors work. You want to know the bottom line of that study? Well, so would we. But we can't, and you can't, because the report is classified. And as we said, though, there is new research, and it's not classified. I'm going to tell you about it shortly. But this is all coming to a head right now because of the alternative. These new, tougher pat-downs. They're setting off a backlash. A breast cancer survivor, for example, being told to remove her prosthetic. A man soaked in urine when the TSA agent ruptured his prosthetic bladder. Complaints of children being frisked. Claims of needless groping. Pictures like these causing a major backlash across the country. With that in mind, what does the head of the TCA have to say about it? What, if anything, is he doing about it with the busiest travel weekend of the year coming up? Will there be any changes? Well, apparently not.
The public will see what we have been working on the last several weeks in terms of they have the option to not go through the advanced imaging technology in the 70 or so airports where we have those machines. If they do opt out of that, then they receive a thorough pat-down to make sure we don't have a Christmas Day type bomber with a non-metallic device concealed on his body.
TSA Director John Pistol in the Situation Room, and I'll tell you what, he really sort of hit the nail on the head. The scanners are designed to stop the alleged underwear bomber Farouk Abdul-Muttalib. And if you look at the images put out by the scanner makers and the government, you'd think they work pretty well. Take a look at this. There's a pistol on the left guy's right leg. And on the right-hand guy on his waist, you see a brick of explosives or drugs. But according to the authors of this new study to be published again this week in the Journal of Transportation Security, it's just not that simple or that safe. The machines, they say, are only good at detecting sharp edges. So, for example, look at this. They're testing with dummies. The scanner picks up a water bottle on the left and an iron bar on the right. because of those edges. But what it does not catch is this, a smooth, round, deadly pancake of PETN explosive.
That amounts to about 320 grams, which is 4 times more than the underwear bomber had. And that would not be detected by the machine. You could get that through. In fact, I think you could probably get even more through than that.
That's scanning technology expert Peter Rez. His colleague authored the study we just talked about. But again, there have already been 2 other investigations of the scanners. And at least one of them, the non-classified GAO report of March 17th, which says this: it remains unclear whether the AIT, meaning the new scanning technology, would have detected the weapon used in the December 2009 incident based on the preliminary information the GAO has received. A couple of footnotes to all this. We don't yet have the full version of the private study that's coming out this week, but we don't yet have any version of the study the GAO apparently did. Also, we reached out to the TSA today regarding this report and the classified report, but we haven't heard back from them. And we do have a big travel week ahead, and there's a lot of big questions to ask. So with us tonight, James Fallows, he's national correspondent for The Atlantic, noted author on aviation and national security, and also Fran Townsend, former Bush Homeland Security Advisor and current member of the Homeland Security Advisory Board. Thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sandra.
Fran, let me start with you. I mean, you've talked quite a bit about this. You say these measures are a deterrent, and there's obviously something to be said for that. But that GAO report I mentioned and this private study as well say these scanners might not have even stopped the Christmas Day bomber last year. So how good are these?
Well, first we ought to be clear. The metal detectors that you normally go through, they wouldn't detect it because they don't detect explosives. The imaging, the advanced imaging technology, these rapid scanners that we're going through now, they also don't detect explosives, they detect mass. And frankly, the question becomes, if they can detect that there is an unexplained mass, it's going to lead you into a pat-down. Are any of these things foolproof? Absolutely not. But what you do is you create an operational environment that's unpredictable for our enemies, which means they can't be sure whether or not they can get it through. You increase their risk, which means you increase the likelihood that you're going to throw them off their game.
Well, you know, I mean, I think part of the issue this week, Fran, is the backlash. I mean, you hear these incidents of a young boy being searched and his father taking the kid's shirt off to prove the son wasn't a threat. The cancer patient, as I mentioned, having to remove their prosthetic breast. I mean, have we really reached that level of scrutiny?
No, and Sanjay, look, let me be clear. I'm not being an apologist for any of that. None of that is necessary. And frankly, you know, you travel all over the world. I travel in airports throughout the Middle East. There are private screening areas. None of that ever happens in public. People are able to be spoken to and examined and have a search that is not nearly as sort of public and humiliating. There's no reason to, you don't have to do it the way it's being done. And I think what you're hearing from Secretary Napolitano, John Pistol, the head of TSA, is they understand they haven't gone about this as well as they might have, and they need to revamp and make sure that people are trained to do this in the least invasive way as possible.
And to be fair, I think a lot of the TSA agents do try and respect privacy as much as possible. I travel a lot as well. Mr. Fallows, I mean, you're calling what we're seeing here security theater. I read one of your articles. I mean, how do you sort of, I mean, this is something you write quite a bit about. I mean, how do you balance this? I mean, this idea of making us safer with these sorts of screening measures. How do you reconcile this in your own mind?
It was the great security expert Bruce Schneier who laudably coined that term, security theater. And what he meant is things that looked as if we were preventing threats, but left out whole other areas that we're not concentrating on. Of course, metal detectors make sense for people going to airports. But if you look at the main sources of where we've gotten information out of threats, has been from intelligence networks. Cargo, you can get much more explosive into cargo areas than you could on a passenger, and there's much less rigorous screening of cargo now than the passengers going through one by one. So it's a question of proportion. I think the sort of outcry of the last week or so, as people have been exposed to the pat-downs or the privacy intrusions of the advanced imaging technology, has brought to bear something which has brought up something that's been discussed for a couple of years, whether it makes sense to have so much cost, so much emphasis on this one aspect of the anti-terrorism fight and neglecting out of proportion to a lot of other things which we could be doing.